So the astrology of the week 7 December 2020 to 13 December 2020 is a moment, I think, best geared for purgation, purging, shredding, letting go, and getting kind of organized in a way as we enter into this very powerful and potent full solar eclipse. So this is kind of a week of preparation. And remember, sometimes in the midst of activity, we can't often know quite what's happening until maybe later, until after the fact, hindsight being 2020. So we're in the week, and this is an interesting week because it's a little bit of a quiet week, but this week starts off with a Virgo moon, and that's what I really want to talk about initially. So Monday, Tuesday, we get this Virgo moon. You know, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury, so that's a sign of analysis and particularity, but it's also an earth sign. So remember, the earth element is an element of our physical environment, money, the body, the home, the nurturing, the connection, the physical connection. So these are the features of that mercurial analysis brought into the earth environment and the home environment. And that's why I'm thinking that this Virgo moon's a good time to purge and to bring a sense of purgation and, let's say, letting go and toning down, maybe even clearing, like some deliberate spring cleaning style clearing, just as a way to ground, I think, more than anything. It might be good just to organize a little bit, like your desk or your space, kind of a feng shui style, analysis of what can you do to make your space flow. I think it can help us because sometimes when life feels out of control, when the moon is now waning and coming into that Sagittarius eclipse a week from this Virgo moon, it is a sense of winding down and letting go, and more of a focus on what do you want to get rid of? What do you want to let go of? You see that a lot in ancient electional astrological texts with that waning moon is decreasing. What do you want to decrease? Mercury here is in Sagittarius. Mercury is ruled by Jupiter in Capricorn. And so that's why I think this purgation feature is even further supported. Jupiter in Capricorn is about having less, doing less, about maybe having contraction. Mercury in Sagittarius is about maybe, speaking truth. But remember, Mercury right now is under the beams of the sun. So Mercury doesn't have that full oomph of what it can do, while Jupiter is so weak and they're not making an aspect. So it's not like Mercury can talk to Jupiter. They're kind of shut out from each other. And that's why I think it's best to kind of tone down and clear and clean and cleanse, purge during this time. There's a lot of other reasons why I think purge is the theme of this week, but this is really one of them. And I think this Virgo moon is an ideal time to use that energy. And remember, we're also preparing for the Great Conjunction, for this new Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius, which happens on the solstice, which is the moment that the sun is at its weakest and it gets reborn. The Great Conjunction is a sense of being of a rebirth, because it's the new Jupiter-Saturn cycle. So there's a lot of features of rebirth coming up here very, very soon. But here's a nice preparatory period with this Virgo moon. The one particular transit I really want to highlight with this moon is that on Tuesday here in Central Europe, really all day, it starts about 10 in the morning and lasts until into the evening. The moon is going to be enclosed between the rays of the benefics. And all that means is that the moon separates from Venus and applies to Jupiter. How I like to use this benefic enclosure of the moon is I go right to the lunar mansion. This would be the tropical lunar mansion. And for this particular moment here on Tuesday, it's a mansion called Al-Simak. It's a mansion that really jives well with this theme of purgation and letting go. It's a mansion about transition, movement. It can be about romantic love, but kind of that fleeting style of love. And so it's kind of appreciating that love in the transition, appreciating the people around you as your life may be dynamically changing during this eclipse season. It's auspicious for those connective things that the earth element can bring to us with respect to the body and the resources. So use this as a time to maybe purge. That's why I like purging here, because you're cleaning, you're letting go, you're transitioning, you're separating from objects. And this Tuesday might be a really nice time for that, to just kind of get out of things that you have been weighing you down potentially. And there's a real healing capacity in that. It's a season of healing. This is a moment of transition which can be used for that purging and that healing. Remember, purging is often used as well in the medical context when you purge things like if you have, if you're sick, sometimes the body has to purge to clear and cleanse and clean and to just heal itself. So that's how I'm thinking about this purging. It's the purging of healing. So Wednesday in Central Europe, really early, like 1 a.m. here in Central Europe on Wednesday, the moon enters Libra. And this week, after the Virgo moon, the condition of the moon is really challenged. In Libra, the moon has to contend with Saturn in Capricorn, has to contend with the opposition to Mars in Aries. So that Libra moon has that great challenge. The last Libra moon that's going to have that double whammy of these malefics. I'm looking forward to next year when we're going to have some lovely Libra moons. It's my favorite sign. I have heavy Libra placements, and it's just one of my favorite signs. It's the Venusian, the touch. We're going to get to access that energy in a big way next year, and I cannot wait. I cannot wait, and I can't wait to engage with you and to share with you about my excitement there. But we're not there yet. This week is that difficult Libra moon. Then we have on Friday here in Central Europe, the moon comes into Scorpio, the sign of the moon's fall, because the moon is exalted in Taurus, so it's fallen in Scorpio, and it's a challenging spot for the moon. We get the Scorpio moon, and then on Sunday, the moon comes into Sagittarius, where the eclipse will take place on the following Monday. So the moon will prepare to do its job in this great cosmic dance and come in between the sun and the earth and block out that sun. The eclipse path will happen in Argentina and Chile. The moon then has to have a ruler that's fallen in Jupiter and Capricorn. I think this Virgo moon, like I said, is the best moon before we really get into this intensity. And about this period where the moon comes through and there's not as much support for it, it's the analogy I think of is if you're at the casino, you've placed your money on the roulette table and there's nothing else to do, and then the wheel starts spinning. It's the die is cast. So I think this week there's a sense of it's out of our hands now in a way, and just try to get through this period, let these new beginnings kick off on the winter solstice, and after eclipse season, the winter solstice hits, we kind of get that reset. The sun starts gaining power, days start getting longer, and now we get this new Jupiter and Saturn cycle. They're both out of Capricorn for good. It's a whole new astrological reality very soon. This is that last declining moment as we kind of fall into this turn. And so the die has been cast. And so there's a sense of holding on here, especially while the moon now has these three signs where it has this stability. Let go, trust your instincts, the skills, the knowledge that you have, that can all be deployed, and it will come to your aid. I find we know when to act when we have to act. There's an instinct that kicks in. All right, so the next transit I'm interested in here is on the 11th of December. This is Friday, about 7 in the morning here in Central Europe. The sun in Sagittarius will make a trine, will perfect a trine to Aries and Mars in Aries. And so it's this fire trine. And I love this transit because it's a really auspicious transit between the two planets that most represent fire, Mars and the sun. In fire signs, Mars in its domicile, its home fire sign, Aries. The sun in Sagittarius, remember the sun has day triplicity rulership in fire signs, and so it's got that extra rulership over these signs, and these planets are then communicating for probably the most easy aspect, maybe the most auspicious aspect. Several different ways we can untangle this aspect and see what it's bringing. One big part of it, I think, is the promise that's being made here between Mars and the sun. There's a promise that this fire energy, that can be our will, our inner fire, our purpose, our action, our decisiveness, our power. And look where Mars is in Aries. Remember when we have that spring equinox, that's when the sun comes into a sign that it's exalted, which is Aries. Partially how I'm seeing this transit, it's sort of a promise for in March, the sun will really return to prominence. And I think that will help with the respiratory illness season that we're seeing. Mars is telling the sun, hey, you've got some good stuff coming here. Just get through this period, get through the Great Conjunction, get through eclipse season, get through January and February when we have a big pile up in Aquarius and a new moon on 11 February, I believe. All 6 of the 7 traditional planets will be in Aquarius, squaring Mars. That's a very difficult transit. Get through that transit. And there's this promise here in this week on Friday with that Sun-Mars trine. So that's one way to go. The other thing is that this is kind of a purge energy. Sometimes we need the Mars to complete a purge. You have to get out of bed and get to the lavatory to let the purge happen, or you have to kind of consent to it. I find often with purgation, you have to say, okay, I consent, you can leave. And you kind of have to make a choice and then kind of take an action to allow for things to leave. It's when we hold and we put our heels in, dig our heels in and hold on. That's when I think things can get difficult. But I see this Mars as kind of a consenting for the action of purgation to do its duty. The sun is kind of our consciousness, Mars is action, and so there's this action and consent that I think is implied here. To let go of all the things that the last 2 years or 3 years have brought you, that Saturn's duty in Capricorn has given you. To let go of those challenges, to honor what you've gone through. But get ready here for a new phase, and you're moving into a new phase where you can deploy your power in new ways, right? We don't have to be prisoners of our past. I mean, it's not about denying or burying it. It's about integrating it, but then moving into something as an integrated person where we have space for new things. You know, astrology, life, healing isn't about get healed right now or you don't have value. That's not what it's about. It's honoring where we are in our process. With that Mars, choose to purge, and then kind of come into this new moment that we're going to have, and have as much of yourself available as you can for new things as this astrology gets really fresh into 2021. That both the Sun and Mars here are ruled by Mercury, the term of Mercury. So I think there's a talking component, there's a communication component to how this purgation I've been describing, or how this Mars Sun trine can operate, and we can note what we're doing when we're doing it. Like, I think that can really support achieving a goal, even just going through the day and like saying, all right, I'm recording a video right now. I'm excited about that. I've been planning and preparing for this video. Now I'm recording the video, so I'm noting what I'm doing, and it helps with bringing consciousness, which is the Sun, awareness, which is the Sun, and then kind of planning, which is Mercury, into action, which is Mars. Those all three can really support each other. You know, and I think that sometimes with Jupiter and Capricorn, remember, ruling Mercury, we're coming back to the Saturn here in terms of the dispositor tree, with Mercury being ruled by Jupiter, then being ruled by Saturn and Capricorn. And I think we can think about the urgency that comes out of necessity. Sometimes that we just act, and we start acting, and it can help to note when things force us to act quickly. Like if you're rushing out the door, all right, do I have my keys? Check, you know. Saying those questions out loud can really be supportive right now, especially because eclipse season, you know, it's not always just go into the cave and meditate. In fact, it's not like that for most people. Life is getting dynamic. Life is getting out of control. And so to stay present with it, saying what's happening, can be a very, very useful tool. And then later that day, on Friday, on the 11th, the Sun meets with the South Node and perfects this conjunction with the South Node. I think it's useful to think about the South Node. You know, the South Node is an eclipse point. It's where the path of the moon crosses the path of the Sun, or the ecliptic. And sometimes you see the South Node referred to as a power where it can suck the energy out. Remember, it's the tail of the snake. It's Ketu in the Vedic tradition. So the snake is cut in two. There's a head and then there's a tail. We're dealing with the South Node, or the tail of the snake. And sometimes you also see it being about excretion, right? We excrete from our tails. Even when a snake sheds, it kind of comes out through the tail. That's where things are coming off at the tail. The skin is at that last moment. But you see it a lot referred to about, you know, excreting things, or, you know, getting things out of the body. That's why I think too this week is about this theme of purgation, of letting go, of purging, of shedding. Points are meeting, right? The Sun and the South Node. But then in 3 days from this meeting, then the moon comes and eclipses the Sun. You know, the analogy I thought of when I was writing this talk is about Judas. And if you read the Gnostic Gospels, there's a gospel called, I think, the Gospel of Judas, a retelling of the Judas story, of the story in the Bible. And Judas and Christ are in on a conspiracy together, according to this telling. And Christ knows that Judas will betray him, and he's actually assigned Judas that very role. He needed someone to betray him and to play that role of the betrayer. And so when they have the kiss in the Gethsemane, it's almost like they wink and they understand, okay, cool, you've got your job, I've got my job, and then the play that has been planned can go forward. But I like the idea that we kind of willingly go into our suffering because we know the benefits that it's going to bring us. And with time, right, and with astrology, we don't have a choice. The things are going to move, the planets are going to move, time will march on, and we have to, you know, so we don't really have a choice in this way. But I like the idea of consenting to the march of time, consenting knowing that there's going to be this powerful solar eclipse. You know, this is what we're confronting with. And I think that I'm viewing the Sun South Node conjunction as that kiss, as that acknowledgement that, okay, we agree, we consent. I will be eclipsed in 3 days, and then the Sun is seeing Ketu, kissing, acknowledging, and then going into that eclipse as a willing participant. So think about that in your life. You know, if things are being blocked right now, if things are limited, just say yes to it. Say yes to life. Say yes, this is what I'm going to have to go through. There's a real spirit of toughness that I think, like Jupiter and Saturn both being in Capricorn, demands of us right now, is a toughness. of taking this lick, these licks, these difficulties, and really the whole year. It's just, this is the climax of the year. And just willingly taking the punch. Sometimes we have to just take a punch. You know, boxers know you take a punch, but it sets up your punch back. You let the punch come and you counter. And so you can't be afraid of taking a punch. I mean, every boxer will tell you, you get in the ring, you take a punch. That's the first, it's how you respond when you take a punch, that it's kind of built into the talent of a boxer. And I think it's an apt metaphor as we move in through this final dynamic climax of 2020. Very, very difficult year. And then we get this new birth. The days are getting shorter into the winter solstice. And at that moment that the sun now crosses Capricorn, into Capricorn, from that moment on, days get longer. And right at that moment, hours after, Jupiter and Saturn meet in Aquarius. I tweeted about this week. Jupiter and Saturn perfecting their conjunction when the sun is in 0 degrees Capricorn hasn't happened since something like 1500 BC. And the time before that, it was in the early 2200s BC. So we're dealing with something that rarely ever happens. It's now happening this time. It's like a double rebirth. So the other thing, you know, Mercury's under the beams of the sun here. This is the last point I wanted to make, then we'll do a tarot reading. But, you know, Mercury is ruling the sun south node conjunction, and Mercury's very close here under the beams. I think there's something about secrets here. Life is kind of about living a secret in a way, because we will go out, we have to function. You know, I go buy the bread at the store. It's not open kimono where I'm sharing my deepest secrets there. That's buttoned up, and I have to put on a facade, an ego facade, the sun, and I come out into the world and present a functional ego to get the business done that I need to do. So functioning in reality as a human being requires keeping certain things secret and hidden, and deploying and letting those secrets out when appropriate. Because Mercury's under the beams, that's already secrets. Communication being blocked, that's in a way a secret. But I think the south node conjunction with the sun can also be something about secrets here. These eclipses are times when, you know, the sun gets blocked, so that facade that we're presenting, it's unable to function fully. And so I think it can be a moment where these secrets can kind of percolate up. You know, and it doesn't have to be some kind of big bombshell, but it can just be maybe you let your guard down a little bit. Maybe you are real around people that you're normally not real around. And what I mean by real is just more authentic. So like for me, maybe when I'm buying the bread, I can say, hey, I'm a little sad today. You know, I miss my family or something like that. And that could be a sweet moment. You know, that person probably understands, and maybe I'll get yeah, I understand, I miss my family too. And there can be a kind of a connection that can come from letting that socially acceptable persona get sort of blotted out here. But that's why I think this Mercury being the ruler of the sun south node conjunction by Egyptian term can help support that. Jupiter's truth. Jupiter is that wisdom, that truth. That's not making, again, an aspect to this. Jupiter's having a really challenged time. Sometimes Jupiter can be even false truth, or like the truth of powerful truth, you know, truth of the power structure. I think these secrets are less about that power structure and like the wisdom of the dominant narrative or the dominant discourse. This is some other kind of authentic truth with maybe the sun and the Mercury working together here with the south node. So look for that this week. All right, I think that's it. That's all I wanted to say. Let's do the tarot reading. Let's get a few symbols with the tarot, see what they can teach us here. I noticed tarot is more popular, it seems like, than astrology right now. I love to see it. You know, it's something about it is more accessible, I think. I mean, with astrology, you know, I had to spend years studying, reading ancient texts to getting, you know, the knowledge that I have now and the ability to work with that knowledge. Tarot, it's almost intuitive. I mean, you can give someone a deck and they can start reading with a day or even less than a day. You just say, hey, look at the card, what does it say to you, and tell someone that. So I'm not, you know, I've been studying tarot a lot longer than even astrology. Sometimes it is like that. You just see a card and it wants you to say something. It elicits something, you know. So let's just get this first card. Let's jump right in here. First card is, wow, Ace of Spades, the Ace of Spades. The card I really needed was the Ace of Spades. You might know that musical reference, but so the Ace of Spades. This is, you know, this is a great card in a certain way. It's the new air sign, new ideas, new air. It's where Jupiter and Saturn will be, the first degree of Aquarius, the fixed air element. So this whole talk, I've been talking about this flip and this turn and this rebirth. Maybe this is what this card is pointing us to, but it's in the position, this first position. So I think it can be about the preparations, really. I'm already starting to think about, well, how am I going to spend my solstice? You know, it's such a special solstice. I am not going to let this one go without taking preparation for it, thinking. So ace of spades, thinking and doing some real planning right now about that special energy that's going to be there. I'll get it up now. I picked out the chart that I like for that. So I'm just telling you, this is how I've already been planning for this. So I'm looking for the charts. I'm already trying to plan that day, because I'm going to do some, want to be with that energy. Let's put it that way. The other thing is the night before, I'm going to try to catch Jupiter and Saturn. I'm going to see them together as one planet. But this is in this position of the present or the recent past, the new era, the new ideas. And that's how I'm reading this card. And I was thinking about, getting the moon on the ascendant. This is actually the real chart I was looking at earlier. And what it does, it gets Venus in the 10th house. The moon is in the ascendant, and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction happens in the 12th house. I don't mind. It's where the Saturn joys. I've been liking having Saturn in the 12th for some of these elections, but the moon is very, very strong. The point is just planning for your great conjunction experience. What do you want to do? How do you want to spend this special energy, this very rare energy? Never will be like this ever again. Think about how you spent your 2012, because that I did some special stuff for that too, which was the winter solstice 2012. So let's go here. Let's go to get the second card. But that's how I'm thinking about this. Just look here, and maybe the theme of purging from the weekly astrology can come into play here, because I am to do rituals, to do special, for me to experience the planetary energy in a special way, it does require clearing of the space and cleaning the space and organizing the space. There's a preparation that goes into it that I think the purge, a theme of the talk, can help support that. So, all right, second card. Second card, here we are. Well, this one just fell out, so we're going to go with it. La Papesse. So this would be the High Priestess. And the High Priestess, hey, wow, I like seeing that. That's actually associated with the moon. This is actually with the moon. So, and this is future forward. I just picked out an election with the moon on the ascendant in Pisces, where the Pisces in the tarot, the moon card is associated with Pisces. This card is associated with the moon, so that's already telling me a moon Pisces connection with this coming up. This is about the way that the moon operates with foresight. It's about how the moon and the lunar divination tactic. Look, everything I do is about the moon. Where is the moon? We have to use the moon to time everything. It's the sphere closest to the earth, so these forces above us come through. Ultimately, the moon is the last field that gets passed through before things manifest in this form. So the moon is primary when it comes to working with any kind of electional astrological working of any kind. And that's why I think it's associated with this religious figure, this kind of, and this is non-sanctioned. Remember, I talked all about the Gospel of Judas. This is kind of a non-sanctioned version. Sometimes people will say this is associated with the Pope Joan, which was a pope in the medieval period that was a female pope, and there was a kind of these offshoots of the church with a female pope. I'm not an expert on that history at all, but again, it's non-sanctioned, and I think that fits with this idea of maybe with this eclipse season and this Sun-South Node conjunction, it's not so terrifying as maybe the sanctioned astrology. This is actually going to be a consent to go through that draining of our power, so that when we can come out the other side and be filled back up with the stuff we're supposed to be filled back up with, right? An empty glass is the only way to pour something new into it, is to empty it out. And so it's a good thing ultimately to purge and to let go. It's healing. So that's how I see this, and just pay attention to the moon this week. The other thing, this Virgo moon, it's the one that has the most, it's most free from difficulty this week. This is also, I think, confirming that, to see the High Priestess here using that Virgo moon to get into this preparation for the solar eclipse. All right, so that's the tarot reading. Have a wonderful week ahead. As always, you can book astrology readings with me, tarot readings, sjanderson144.com. Right at the top, click here to schedule a reading. It will navigate right to the scheduler. Awesome to see you here. I'm glad I can communicate with you in this way, and have a wonderful week ahead. Hang on, we're almost to that new reality with Jupiter and Saturn.